Hi, this is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video we are going to make a Wrapit Loom bracelet with leather cord and 2-hole beads. So I'm going to be using the 2-hole beads here, and these are the Tango beads, and I'm going to show you kind of how I'm going to set up my pattern in a little bit here. But I have 2 different colors. I also have a shank button for my closure, so I have a little flower here that I'm going to be using. And then I have 8/0 round Toho seed beads. So those are the beads and closures that you're going to need. I also have a 1.5 millimeter cord here, and this is leather in a sort of very natural color. And this is 1 yard. I have a twisted wire needle, and I also have Griffin silk that has a twisted wire needle attached to it that I'm going to be showing you how we're going to implement that as well. And for tools, we're going to be using flush cutters, or if you're more comfortable, you can use snips or scissors. And then I have GS Hypo cement, and this is just to keep that glue from my table, so I just have a little stack of Post-it notes there. I also have a ruler, and then of course we can't do this without the Wrapit Loom by Rainbow Loom. So I've already set up my loom here, but if you have just purchased this out of the box, we do have a video showing you exactly how to set it up from the box and how to use it as well. So I'm going to skip ahead a few steps and just kind of have mine all set up and ready to go. So just to give you a little bit of overview of what we're actually going to be making, here is a traditional Wrapit Loom bracelet, and this uses single hole beads. As you can see, I'm using the Swarovski crystal pearls with the Toho seed beads. And you can see that there's a nice window that's sort of behind there, so you really get a nice look at what you're going to be making and the sort of general wraps. Now here's another example I made, and this is featuring the 2-hole diamond duo, so this is something a little bit more similar to what we're going to be doing today. And you can see that it's the same style of wrapping, and you just sort of are wrapping through the 2 holes and sort of adding a bead in between. So we're going to do something a little similar to this, so you'll be able to see what that looks like in this video. Let's go ahead and get started. So to begin, I'm going to sort of set up my pattern. So what I want to do is I'm going to be taking a few of my colors of Tango beads here. And what I want to do is I want to just sort of have it laid out a little bit for something for me to follow. And you can see that there are 2 holes on each side of these Tango beads. So you can sort of see how they're going to lay together. So I just want to maybe lay a few out and just get a feel for how I want that pattern, because they fit together like nice little tight squares. So let me just kind of take a minute here to figure out how I want my pattern to lay out. And I sort of want this little geometric style. So I'm just going to kind of keep laying them out just a little bit. I just want to get a feel for what I'm going to be doing. Also, it does help to have a little something to follow, because sort of doing a pattern creator with this is a little bit more difficult. So I'm just going to figure out how I want these little guys to lay. Okay, that's good enough for me. Now I have a little guide, so that's how we're sort of going to continue our little pattern, just having those little triangles, and we'll go all the way down. So go ahead and take your leather cord here, and I have about 1 yard, so that's about 3 feet, and I'm just going to start by sliding my button shank all the way down to the center of my cord. And now I'm going to tie 1 overhand knot. So just take those ends and slide them through. Pull tight. And now you're going to need to make sure that your knot is even. And you want to make sure that it's nice and close up against that button. So we're just going to kind of scooch it around a little and pull it nice and tight. There we go. All right, so now we have our knot, and I'm going to take my cord here and kind of stretch it out so that I fit my button right in between that first notch that's right there on my loom. And now this is where you're going to want to get your sizing involved. So I'm going to want to do about 6 inches, kind of go backwards here, about 6 inches of the actual weaving to make about a 7-inch bracelet. Now you'll notice on the 2 examples that I gave earlier, there's 2 different closures, and I'll go over that as we get a little bit closer to the end. So from knot to knot, I'm gonna want to do about 6 inches or so. There we go. So I have that right here in my hand. So now I'm just gonna make another overhand knot, just kind of keeping my place. And again, just sort of gradually tighten up that knot so that it's right where you want to fit it. And the leather is thick enough so that if you did want to kind of take your knot out and just sort of resize, but I hit that pretty right on. So 6 inches is what I'm working with. So now you're going to want to move. Let me just take this out here and kind of show you what I'm going to do. And this is just all kind of for sizing. Once you have your size, you'll be able to do this part much faster. So go ahead and take that button, and as though it were going to be closed in there, you're going to want to create another little knot. So that's enough to sort of fit that button shank in there and get it out so that you're going to have a nice tight bracelet. Now I want to just tighten up that knot that's right there. There we go. And now it's about 3/4 to an inch that you're going to want to create that second knot. So go ahead. And this is just a very simple, just overhand knot. And again, just work your way around to where you want that closure to be. All right, give it one little final tug and tighten there. And just before you start weaving, just double check and make sure that that is where you want your button to be and make sure it fits through that loop. So that is what you're working with. Now, if you want, you can add another knot before moving on here to give yourself the option to expand your bracelet. And this is a great idea if you're going to be selling jewelry, so you can kind of create a second knot so that if people want to wear it a little bit larger, they can do so. So go ahead and same principle, just going to kind of squeeze that all together and pull your knots, so make sure they're nice and tight. And the leather is strong, so you can give it a nice good tug. Okay, so now that we have that part set up, I'm going to put this back into my Wrapit Loom. There we go. And now I can put the other side around the second knot and kind of pull it so it's nice and tight. So I have a little tightrope here. So this is the setup for our loom. I'm going to set that aside. And now go ahead and take your Griffin silk, and one side will already have that twisted wire needle on it. So you just kind of want to just give it a nice little tug if you want to. There we go. Just kind of straighten it out a little bit. You can see that it has all these kinks in it from the cards. Of course, I don't want to accidentally cut mine, so I'm going to move my cutters out of the way. And I'm going to move to the side that doesn't have that twisted wire needle. Now, because of the beads that I'm going to be using today, you're going to want that twisted wire needle. It'll make your stringing so much easier. So just go ahead and string on that wire, and you only need to go down about an inch or so. And just very simply, just kind of just twist that wire, and it'll just kind of close that up for you. So you can just kind of pinch that. There you go. And I'm actually going to string mine through a little bit more. You'll have plenty of Griffin silk and plenty of slack, so you don't need to be too stingy. There we go. So you're just kind of creating that second twisted wire so that you have a wire on both ends. So now we are ready to begin here. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the center of our Griffin silk here. Just kind of pull it down all the way down to the end here. And that's about the center. So just make sure that you have one strand on one side and the other strand on the other side. Come on. There we go. And don't get it tangled. Okay. There we go. There is my center line for my Griffin silk. So all I'm going to do is take it and put one side underneath and around and have it come out the same side and go down and around and do the same with the other side. So you're kind of creating this little sort of loop here. So I'm just going to kind of hold that there so you can sort of see that I went over the top, around and out one side, and around and out the other side. And I'm just, right now, you can't see it on camera, I'm just kind of adjusting and checking to make sure that each line of my Griffin silk is even. So I'm having to kind of run it through. There we go. So now I'm officially at my center. So all I'm gonna do is push that up towards my knot, and I'm gonna do one overhand knot with my Griffin silk. And kind of pull that down, give it a nice little tug. And I'm just gonna repeat that and go underneath and out, and take the left side underneath and out. All right, there we are. Now we're ready to begin adding our beads. So go ahead and take one side of your needle, and I'm going to string on just one of the 8/0 Toho seed beads, and I'm gonna string that down. And you can see that I'm already crisscrossing over. And to the other side, I'm going to take my little wire needle, and I'm going to go through the bead going the opposite direction and pull that through to the other side. So you'll see it kind of come down, and we're going to trap that first bead right in the middle. So now you've added your first bead, and if you want, you can go ahead, and I have room to sort of push mine up towards the top there. So this is sort of the pattern. You'll go under and out the same direction, under and out the same direction. And now we're gonna add 2 beads. Now it doesn't matter which needle you're adding on to first. If you're left-handed, it might be easier to add on to your left-handed needle first. But I'm gonna go ahead and add on to my right-hand needle 2 of the Toho and kind of pull that down for myself. There we go. And 2 more. Or I'm sorry, I'm stringing back through those very same Toho beads. And now pull them tight. And you can kind of, in the beginning, you'll need to kind of take your time and move. Once this starts to open up, you'll see that it gets to be a little bit more structurally easy to work with. So before I add more beads, under and out, and under and out. Now I want to take you down here, and we're going to look at the beads that I have working here. Now you'll see that I want to open it up so that I have 3 of the Tohos in between. And I'm just going to kind of pick this up just to kind of show you what we're going to be accomplishing. So I need it to be at least 3 of those Tohos wide to make my pattern work. So I'm going to go ahead, since I already have these on here, onto my left-hand needle, just go ahead and string that through. And take my other side, string it through. And like I said, if you're switching back and forth between your left first or your right first, it really doesn't matter. It's just about what is comfortable for you. So there we go. I'm gonna sort of scooch that up. And the only reason that mine is sort of turning is just because that my button shank and my knot is sort of turned in there. When you take it off of here, it'll be perfectly flat. Okay, so same thing. In and out, and in and out. All right, so now we're gonna start adding onto this. We're gonna start by adding our Tango beads. Okay, so following along with my little pattern here, I'm gonna take one of those Tango beads, and you have the 2 that are on one side and the 2 that are sort of next to each other. And these are the holes that we're gonna be using because we want them to sit like this. So go ahead and take one needle, and you're gonna go through that very first top one. And because I want my purple ones to sit just the same, I'm gonna go through the top hole on the other side there. So this is how they are gonna sort of sit together. So you wanna just make sure that you have those 2 holes on the outside there. So while I have this on my needle, this is gonna be a little bit easier if you try to do it the way that I'm describing here. So you take it onto your needle and then take your other needle going the opposite direction. And the nice thing is that these needles are flexible and they're very long. So you can kind of just sort of wiggle it around, and this is much easier to do on the needles than it is onto the cord. So there are my 2 needles, so I'm just going to pull both through. And you'll see it as it comes together here. And I want to make sure that I am flipping them so that they are going the right way that I want them to. All right, so there we are. And now just dip below and come out one side, dip below, come out that same side there. And now, instead of adding beads, I'm just going to go through that second hole that is part of the Tango beads. So I'm just getting my needle through there, kind of wiggling it to the other side, making sure to come out on top of my leather cord. And I'm going to go ahead and string that all the way through. And now taking that second piece of cord with my needle, and I'm just going to go back through that same hole I just came out, wiggle it all the way across, make sure to catch both beads, come over the top of the leather, and out that same side. There we go. And kind of just make sure, give it a little tug, make sure it's nice and tight. Same thing, down and out and around, down and out and around. Now, if you want to, you can alternate the pattern by doing 3 Toho seed beads and in between each one, or you can keep going and do just the Tango beads in their pattern going down. I'm going to continue with the Tango beads and just sort of keep that pattern going. So there's a lot of options when you're just sort of doing this. So feel free to have fun and definitely experiment. Okay, so now I'm going to need to pick up a Tango bead, but it's going to need to be going the opposite direction, because what I want to try to do is to create this little fun pattern here of alternating them. There we go. So you can see that when I lay it down next to it, I have the right pattern. So you can always test out when you have it on your needle. And just pull that through. And this is where the 2-hole beads are a little bit more complicated than your single-hole beads. It'll just take you a little bit more time, but I think the result is actually very fun and very cool. So just pulling both my cords through, going the opposite direction, and you'll start to see that they'll just start to sit a little bit nicer. So down and around. Always don't forget this step, because then you won't get that beautiful wrap. And now taking your cord, going through one way, if your needle gets kinked, you can just sort of take your fingers and just kind of brush it out. There you go, going up and over, pulling all the way through, taking my second needle and going back through the other direction. So this is the main pattern. So if you just want to continue to weave in until you get to the end, I will show you how to complete the bracelet and take it off of your loom. So I'm going to do that off camera and I'll meet you at the other side. So continue your pattern and I'll see you there. So now that I have come to the end here, I'm going to continue to do my down and in and around, down and in and around, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the last few units and they are going to actually be the Toho seed beads. So I'm just going to sort of step it down just like we did at the very beginning. So just adding 3 of those Toho seed beads to one side, stringing them down, stringing across, and just while I'm doing this, I'm just going to talk you through a couple of little tips that will help you when doing a bracelet of this sort of design. And you'll notice that as I get towards the bottom here, I'm having the same issue of, do I add another square unit or do I just add on my Toho seed beads? Now these are a smaller unit, so you can kind of judge that for yourself. But I decided to not add another square unit. I thought it just might be just a little too tight, so I'm just gonna add those last little 6 of the seed beads there. So on my next row here, I'm just adding 2. And if you're gonna be doing or selling a design similar to this, I definitely recommend doing those extra knots. You can kind of create them for various sizes. All right, so I'm doing my very last row here, down and in and around. And you can see now I'm starting to use my needle to come up through there because that space is getting really tight. A nice little tug. Going through one, going through the opposite direction. All right. So yeah, so you can see that I do have a little bit of space there, but I'm okay with that because I'm actually going to need that space to take my needle, and you're going to repeat that process of just going down and around and out, and down and around and out. And I'm going to repeat that one more time, coming up through that center. And one last time. And make sure not to catch any of those threads that are coming down through there. Okay, so now I have, you can kind of see a nice little pattern develop on my end. So now I'm just going to take and do an overhand knot. Bring that down, tie it nice and tight, and I'm going to repeat that to do a double overhand knot. Now if that's enough security for you, you can just trim your ends and go ahead and take it off. But if you'd like, and what I recommend, is using a little dab of glue. Now I'm using the GS Hypo cement, but you can also use E6000. That's another glue that we recommend as well. This one just has a nice little pinpoint precision there. So I'm just going to get my little dab of glue onto my nut. There we go. And just to make sure my glue doesn't dry up, I'm going to go ahead and close that. There we go. I'm going to let that dry for just a few minutes. But while it's drying, I am going to actually tie another knot, and this will just kind of secure it over the top. Again, just that very same simple tie your shoelace kind of overhand knot. So just pull that down and pull that nice and snug. Now I do recommend letting this dry for at least 24 hours before wearing it. It'll let that glue get nice and hard for you. But for the purposes of my video, I'm going to go ahead and take my snips and I'm going to cut my tails right now. And go ahead and set those aside. Carefully unhook your piece from your loom and go ahead and slide it out. And now here is if you want to add, I'm actually going to go this way so that that knot falls on the inside. And I'm just going to slip it through my little button shank there. Just kind of eyeball my size, and that looks good for me. So I am all done, and you can see that I do have some tails here. So if you wanted to, you can adjust your size accordingly, but I'm just going to take my flush cutters and go ahead and trim those tails. So now I have finished an adjustable bracelet using 2-hole beads, and I used the Wrapit Loom to create this really fun and funky design. So there you have it. Feel free to explore a lot of our 2-hole beads and our single-hole beads to create designs to suit your needs. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can find more videos and of course all of these supplies at Beadaholique.com.